What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler, and today I think I have one of the most anticipated sneakers of the entire year, and that shoe is the Adidas Yeezy Boost 380. Originally thought to be named the Yeezy Boost 350 V3, the 380 is the highly anticipated follow-up to the insanely popular Yeezy Boost 350 V2. And the fact that the 380 is the successor to the Yeezy Boost 350 V2 becomes very obvious when you look at the two sneakers next to each other. Stay tuned because I'm actually doing a comparison versus video between the 380 and the 350 V2, so make sure you hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already so you know exactly when that video drops. If you're interested in grabbing Kanye's latest sneaker, the Adidas Yeezy Boost 380 drops this Saturday, November 16th for $230 US. I unfortunately have no idea about availability or how limited the sneaker is going to be. I just grabbed this pair off GOAT last week, and if you're trying to grab a pair early, I believe GOAT does have a lot of sizes available. This video is not sponsored by GOAT, I just wanted to let you guys know where I got my pair. But before we actually get into the sneaker itself, let's take a look at the final retail packaging. Right off the bat, the first thing that you'll notice is that this shoebox is very similar to every other Yeezy Boost shoebox. In fact, most other Yeezy shoeboxes. You've got a natural cardboard upper, you've got the sneaker model number, in this case it's 380 printed on the top of the box. You've got Boost printed on one of the long sides of the box, you've got nothing on the other side, and then you've got the size tag on the side that doesn't open. The official colorway of this shoe is Alien. It's a Yeezy Boost 380 and the style code is FV3260. Other than that, the box is pretty much exactly the same as every other standard Yeezy box. So now, without any further ado, let's get into the reason you guys are here, the sneaker itself. I'm so used to saying V2 after every Yeezy name that whenever I say the Yeezy Boost 380, I accidentally usually say V2, so I have to retake that entire clip, and it's been a bummer to film. The first thing that I noticed about the 380 when I pulled it out of the box is how much of a refinement it feels over the V2. And by refinement, I don't mean it's better in every aspect, I mean it looks like they thought out every aspect and changed things to make it more comfortable and more performance oriented. And in some ways, that's a great thing. There's a lot of stuff that I like about this sneaker a lot better than the 350 V2. But I'm just gonna come out and say it, I don't think it looks as good. And that's fine, I don't think it needs to. And I also think because this is a new Yeezy model, we're just not used to seeing it yet. We see the 350 V2 everywhere, all the time. We're so used to that silhouette that it really started to grow on us. Whereas with the 380, it's still brand new. We haven't even seen these on people's feet yet, at least not in person. Unless you like know Kanye or something, which if you do, hit me up. I'd love to meet him. And because of that, until this shoe actually comes out, you might not know whether you really like the sneaker or not until you see it on someone's feet. Not only that, but Kanye's design aesthetic has changed a lot. I think if he had the chance to go back and redesign the 350 in the way that he would want it to look now, it would probably look a lot like this shoe. He's not creating 750s anymore, he's not creating the original V1s, he's creating shoes like the Yeezy Algae Clogs. Like, that's a completely different look than anything he's created before, and this shoe is much closer to that than it is to a 750. So unfortunately, if you don't like this new, more organic aesthetic that he's got going on, you're probably not gonna like a lot of what Kanye has coming out in the near future. But jumping into the materials themselves, the first thing that probably caught your eye was this crazy Alien Prime Knit upper. Yes, the upper is still made up of Prime Knit, and yes, it is still thicker than most other Prime Knit sneakers. However, I will say that the actual texture of the knit is a lot less coarse than the standard 350 V2s. The actual feel of the knit is much smoother to the touch, but it's still as structured as the 350 V2, so unfortunately, it's not really stretchy, it's just still kind of like a stiff fabric. The organic pattern of the knit features a couple different colors. You've got a dark gray, you've got a white that seems to be sort of the base, and then you've also got this sort of light cream or sail color, which actually seems to be knitted on top of the gray and the white. And it's also interesting because each colored area seems to be a little bit raised. White seems to be the base layer, then gray, which is raised above the white, and then this cream color, which is raised above everything else. I actually really like that about the knit because it makes the pattern look almost 3D. Like the 350 V2s, the pattern is actually mirrored from the left shoe to the right shoe. Even though it's a much more organic pattern and looks like it could be somewhat random, when you look at the two shoes together, you'll notice it's actually the same thing. Running up the center of the shoe, you still have that split line where the two parts of the the upper come together, except this time around, unlike the 350 V2, which had a very prominent stitching detail, it looks like they actually flip the stitching inside out, so you have the stitching on the inside of the shoe rather than the outside, so it's just a pretty clean line running down the center. Weaving through the prime knit upper, you still have a very similar lacing system to what you had on the 350 V2s. You've still got these rope laces that sort of just punch in and out of the actual knit itself. It works fine. It's not the most incredible lacing system in the world. It doesn't make the shoe incredibly tighter than it would be if you just left it unlaced, but hey, you know what? It's still there, so I don't mind it. In my opinion, the lacing system actually helps more visually than it does functionally, but you know, it's fine. Unlike a lot of the previous 350s that had 3M woven into the rope laces, this colorway of the 380 keeps the laces pretty simple with just one off-white colored tone. Just beneath the laces on the lateral side, you've got this clear, very glossy looking stripe. The stripe seems to be made out of a couple different plastic layers all pressed together, so it's got a very glossy, shiny look, which I'm not really in love with. It also seems like they gave it some sort of coating that the 350 V2s didn't have. The stripe on the 380s kind of reminds me of some sort of tear or like a gash if you got like scratched by a bear or something like that. I don't know exactly what they were going for with that shape. I don't hate it. It's just kind of weird and kind of out of left field. To be fair, I get it. It's organic and definitely on the alien theme, but I wouldn't have minded if it wasn't as scratch-like. Not only that, the stripe also features these large perforations, which do actually allow for some nice breathability in the midfoot, which I appreciated. Visually though, I don't love this detail, and I could see how this could set off a lot of people's tryptophobia. Underneath the mesh, you've got these two plastic stripes, which I'm assuming are there for structure, and at first I thought that maybe it was 3 stripes and they were forming like a sort of hidden Adidas 3 stripes, but looking at it closer, nah, it's just 2 plastic stripes. Kind of boring. Moving over to the medial or the inside of the shoe, you do have a pretty similar detail to what you have on the lateral side. However, instead of the plastic mesh, you've just got prime knit with that same sort of glossy coating that you have on the other side. You've also still got these perforations for breathability, which again is nice, but could probably trip some people out. Then moving towards the ankle of the 380, it looks like Adidas has changed things up pretty dramatically and given this shoe a much more sock-like ankle collar. This ankle collar is very similar to what you have on a lot of sneakers like the Ultra Boost 19 and the NMD R1s, and even though visually I don't like it as much, it actually feels better on foot. The collar of the 380 is very stretchy and actually hugs your ankle really nicely. In fact, I really love the way it fits, I just don't love the way it looks. Inside the 380, things are different than the 350 V2, but not incredibly different. You still have a pretty nicely padded heel area, and most of your foot is just up against raw prime knit. The cut of the shoe does seem to be a little bit higher than the 350 V2s, but that's mostly due to the new ankle area. The insole of the 380s also seems to be a little bit different than the 350s as well. It's got a much higher heel area, and it seems to be a bit more sculpted than the 350 V2s. On the alien colorway of the 380s, the insole comes in gray with the Yeezy and Adidas branding printed on the heel in black. As for sizing, it does seem like Adidas has made some changes on the 380 that make this shoe much more comfortable on feet. The biggest surprise for me is that the actual cut of the upper just seems to fit around my foot better. The shape of the 380 just feels a bit more foot shaped, more so than the 350 V2. Not that the 350 V2 was uncomfortable, but there were times when you were wearing the 350 V2 when your toes really started to hurt because all your toes were kind of being pushed towards the center of the shoe. The upper of the 380 just seems to be shaped more like a performance shoe than a Yeezy, which I love about it because it just feels so much better on foot. As for the actual sizing of this shoe, it doesn't feel incredibly different than the 350 V2. I bought the 380s in my true size, a size 9, and it definitely feels better on feet than the 350 V2s, but I don't know if it's like a night and day improvement. It's more of a subtle incremental improvement. For me personally, I went true to size on this shoe and it fits me fine, and I think I will continue to go true to size on this shoe. However, if you're still a little unsure, you could revert back to your Yeezy 350 V2 sizing and go a half size up. I don't personally think it's necessary, but if you really had to go up a half size in the original Yeezy 350 V2s, then it probably would not hurt to do the same thing in the 380s. But as I always suggest, if you had the chance to try this shoe on first before you buy it, which you definitely should because it's a brand new model, definitely do that to make sure you're grabbing the right size for you. Then moving around to the heel of the sneaker, you've actually got a pretty plain heel area. The most interesting thing about this heel is just the prime knit pattern. There is a tiny bit of felt feeling material that covers up the seam and actually wraps over the top of the ankle, but other than that, it's a pretty plain heel, and of course it doesn't have a pull tab, which I don't mind. I guess the elongated heel area would actually act as the pull tab. Continuing down on the sneaker, you get to another pretty significant change from the 350 V2, and that's this midsole area. Unlike the 350 V2s, the 380s have this very smooth, semi-translucent rubber panel that runs along the side of the shoe. The rubber has a very foggy, white, sort of yellowish tint to it, and it also has this very nice, smooth, matte texture, which I really like. In addition to that, the shoe also has a very subtle light green pattern on the midsole, which I didn't even notice till like a week ago. The pattern kind of looks like melting wax or like something's dripping, and I really don't mind it. I feel like it adds some nice interest to the midsole of the sneaker, because without the ribs, they had to do something. It was pretty plain otherwise. Something else that you probably noticed about this shoe is how the midsole of the sneaker is pretty heavily swept up towards the heel. Whereas on the original 350 V2, there's no sweep at all, and it's just kind of this bump in the heel. At first, I didn't know how to feel about this detail. I just didn't think it looked that great. But then I tried the shoe on, and my mind was changed completely. This sweep actually really changes the way that you walk. It makes it a much more pleasant experience. Surprisingly, I didn't even expect it to be like that. One thing that you may or may not have noticed about the 350 V2 is that when you're walking in this shoe, the heel actually catches the ground last or first, depending on whether you're stepping down or pulling up. Whereas with this shoe, you actually are able to catch the ground with this area first, which actually makes steps much easier and much more comfortable. It's a change that I didn't even know that I wanted, and now that I have it, I love it. The one downside though is that this sweep is pretty dramatic, so if you accidentally roll back on your foot, you might lose your balance, but other than that, it's great. Moving around to the heel of the midsole, it looks like Adidas really changed things for the better, which I absolutely love. And that change is that rather than having the outsole of the sneaker wrap up onto the heel, it just ends in a seam, which is simple, it's clean, I really like it. I don't know why they didn't do that before. Something else that I noticed about the 380's midsole is that it seems like there is actually more boost in this shoe than the 350 V2s, and consequently, it's more comfortable. Genuinely, when I was walking around in the 380s, I felt like they were noticeably more comfortable than the 350 V2s, and I loved it about them. They're an incredibly comfortable shoe on foot. They just felt boostier and more cloud-like, and because of this sweep up in the heel, they were easier to walk in as well. It was just an all-around much more comfortable experience. And then finally, moving to the bottom of the sneaker, you've got this really nice rubber, almost herringbone-like traction pattern. I love the fact that this shoe finally has traction on it. The 350 V2s didn't really have any traction to speak of, and this seems like it's gonna grip so much better. Like the 350 V2s, the 380s have these cut-throughs to the boost, which allows the boost materials to expand when you stand on them, which makes it a much more comfortable ride. Not only that, but these cutouts have a much more organic and sort of lifelike shape, which I definitely prefer to the 350 V2s. So, should you grab the Yeezy Boost 380 when it drops this Saturday, November 16th? In my opinion, yes, I think it's a great sneaker, and while it might not look as good as the 350 V2, there are so many improvements about this sneaker that just make it more comfortable and easier to wear. It's definitely worth the $230. With that said, if you don't love the way this sneaker looks, is it worth buying just because of the comfort? I don't know. I mean, you could probably buy some Ultra Boosts on sale that would be more comfortable than this, but if you're looking for a very comfortable pair of Yeezys, this might be the way to go. But now I would love to know your thoughts on the Yeezy Boost 380, both in the alien colorway and just the silhouette as a whole. So let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe down below so you can stay up to date on all the brand new Yeezy information. Like I said, I've got a Yeezy comparison video coming out very soon. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.